The fluorescent hum of the server room was usually a comfort, a symphony of progress. Tonight it felt like a mocking drone. I adjusted my glasses, the glow of the monitor reflecting the frantic lines of code I was pushing. Across the sterile white office, past the partitioned cubicles where the ghosts of 100 late nights still lingered, I heard his booming laugh. Mark. Always Mark. He was on the phone, no doubt charming another potential investor, spinning the usual grandiose tales of quantum leap solutions and its imminent global domination. I remember the day he said it. We were in this very room, me buried in a knot of network cables, him pacing like a caged tiger. The initial investment, my entire inheritance from my grandmother, was already sunk into his grand vision. He'd scoffed at my suggestion for a more robust data encryption protocol, waving a dismissive hand. "You're useless, Alex," he declared, his voice dripping with a kind of casual contempt only a truly self-absorbed person could master. "Just stick to the technical stuff. Leave the big picture to me." Useless. The word had lodged itself in my gut, a bitter seed. I'd built the backbone of Quantum Leap. I'd coded the algorithms that made his revolutionary data compression actually work. While he schmoozed and strategized, I was the one hunched over a keyboard at 3 a.m., fueled by lukewarm coffee and the desperate hope that his dream, our dream, would actually materialize. My name wasn't on any public document as a founder, just a silent partner, a technical wizard in the shadows by my own choosing. I preferred the quiet hum of lines of code to the flashy lights of a press conference. But that didn't mean I wasn't essential. 4 months after that, the word echoed. Every success, every milestone Mark proudly announced, felt like a slap. I'd nod, offer a polite smile, and then retreat to my corner, meticulously refining, debugging, building. The company grew, as did Mark's ego. He bought a new sports car, moved into a penthouse overlooking the city. I still drove my beat-up sedan and rented a modest apartment. My reward was the satisfaction of seeing my code bring his vision to life, and the growing, simmering resentment that fueled my late-night work. The whispers started subtly at first. Competitors were catching up. Key clients were expressing concerns about the stability of our platform. Mark dismissed it all as noise. But I knew better. I saw the error logs, the increasing number of tickets in our support system. The cracks in his grand facade were starting to show, and he was too busy polishing his image to notice. He was too busy being the face of the company to see the foundation crumbling. I will continue the story for you. Here's part 2. Part 2, the cracks deepen. The air in the office grew heavier with each passing week. The initial buzz of ambition had been replaced by a low hum of anxiety. Mark, ever the showman, was spending more time out of the office, attending conferences, giving interviews, always reinforcing the illusion of unshakable success. But the numbers weren't lying, and I had access to all of them. Our user base, once soaring, had plateaued. Churn rates were creeping up. The once robust pipeline of new clients was now a trickle. I started noticing the little things first. The way Mark would flinch when someone mentioned a competitor's new feature. The increasingly terse emails from our sales team. Then came the whispers from the support desk. Customers complaining about system outages, inexplicable data losses, and features that simply stopped working. These weren't minor glitches. They were systemic failures, a direct result of Mark's insistence on prioritizing flashy, untested features over the stability of the core product. He wanted to chase the next big trend, always, leaving a trail of instability in his wake. One particularly grueling Tuesday, I found myself locked in a heated argument with one of our senior developers, a sharp young woman named Chloe who joined us a few months prior. She was advocating for a complete rollback of the latest update, citing critical vulnerabilities. Mark, who'd strolled in mid-discussion, overheard her. He didn't even bother to understand the technical details. He just stood there, arms crossed, a sneer playing on his lips. "Chloe, are you trying to sabotage our progress?" he'd snapped, his voice sharp enough to cut glass. "We don't have time for your little engineering purity tests. Push it live." Chloe looked at me, a silent plea in her eyes. I knew what she was asking. Are you going to let him do this? For a moment, I considered speaking up, laying out the undeniable facts, the risks. But then Mark's dismissive "useless" echoed in my mind, and I felt a cold resolve harden within me. He wanted to drive this company into the ground with his ego. Fine. Let him. I wouldn't be the one to stop him. Not anymore. I simply nodded to Chloe, a silent apology, and she reluctantly turned back to her terminal, her shoulders slumped in defeat. That night, as I ran a diagnostic on a particularly troublesome server, I stumbled upon a string of internal emails. They were from Mark to his personal assistant, detailing plans for a new, highly speculative venture. A completely separate company, still in its nascent stages, that would leverage some of Quantum Leap's existing proprietary technology. He was, in essence, siphoning off our resources, planning his escape route, all while the company he had publicly championed was teetering on the brink. He wasn't just arrogant. He was a rat, ready to abandon the ship he'd piloted straight into an iceberg. The bitter seed planted months ago began to bloom into a dark, thorny bush of resentment. Understood. I'll continue the story for you, building on the rising tension. Part 3, The Untethering. The revelation about Mark's personal escape plan solidified something in me. It wasn't just about my stolen inheritance anymore, or the sting of his dismissive words. It was about principle. It was about the dozens of people who worked here, people like Chloe, who genuinely believed in Quantum Leap solutions and were pouring their lives into it, unaware that their captain was already eyeing the lifeboats. That night, instead of going home, I stayed. The server room, usually a place of comfort, now felt like a vault guarding a ticking time bomb. I worked meticulously, every keystroke deliberate, every command executed with grim precision. My silent investment wasn't just financial. It was intellectual. I knew the system's every artery, every nerve ending, every secret passage. I'd built the complex web of interconnected databases, the proprietary encryption keys, the very architecture that made Quantum Leap unique. And I knew exactly how to untangle it. I started with the access protocols. My administrator privileges were absolute, a relic from the early days when Mark had trusted me completely. I began systematically revoking his personal access to key servers, rerouting data streams, encrypting critical folders with new keys that only I possessed. It was like severing the roots of a massive tree, branch by branch, unnoticed in the dark. The process was slow, painstaking, and immensely satisfying. I could almost hear the faint, distant screams of data packets as they lost their way, becoming untethered from their intended destination. The next morning, the office was a hive of frantic activity. The IT department was in chaos, their usual calm replaced by a chorus of panicked shouts and exasperated sighs. Chloe, looking pale, found me by the coffee machine. "Alex," she whispered, her eyes wide. "The system's collapsing. We can't access the main user database. Sales is losing their minds." I took a slow sip of my coffee, meeting her gaze calmly. "Problems, huh?" She nodded vigorously. "Major ones. It's like the entire core infrastructure just vanished." Mark's furious. He's demanding answers. He would. Because what had vanished wasn't just data. It was his control. My silent investment, in its most abstract form, was the very foundation of his company's existence. I had built the castle. Now I was pulling the bricks from the bottom, one by agonizing, calculated piece. He stormed into the server room a few minutes later, his face purple with rage, his usually slicked-back hair a mess. He saw me there, calmly monitoring a screen that displayed a cascade of error messages. "What have you done?" he roared, his voice echoing off the metallic walls. "Fix this, Alex. Fix it now." I turned to face him, my expression unreadable. "There's nothing to fix, Mark," I said, my voice low and steady. "It's all exactly as it should be." "Got it. This is the moment of reckoning. Here's part 4. Part 4. The Unraveling." Mark stared at me, his eyes wide with disbelief. then narrowed with a dawning horror. He didn't understand what I meant, not fully, but he knew enough. The chaotic screens behind me, the frantic IT staff, and my calm, unwavering gaze. It all pointed to an undeniable truth. This wasn't a system glitch. This was intentional. "What are you talking about, Alex?" His voice was a strained whisper now, the booming confidence entirely gone. "What have you done?" I leaned back against a server rack, crossing my arms. "I've withdrawn my investment, Mark. All of it." He spluttered, speechless for a moment. Your investment? You mean the few shares you bought years ago?" "That wouldn't. Not just the shares, Mark. My silent investment." I gestured around the room, to the humming machines, to the lines of code scrolling on my monitor. Every algorithm, every unique encryption protocol, every piece of proprietary architecture that makes Quantum Leap Solutions actually work. Built it. From the ground up. It's all intertwined with my core code that is now no longer accessible to your system. His face paled further. He opened his mouth, then closed it. He was starting to grasp the magnitude of it. He had always dismissed my contributions, viewing me as a mere technician, a cog in his grand machine. He had never understood that I wasn't just a cog. I was the engine, and I had just turned it off. "This is blackmail," he finally managed to stammer, his voice rising in desperation. I simply shook my head. "No, Mark. This is a consequence. You called me useless. You built your empire on my foundation, and then you began siphoning off resources, planning your next escape, leaving this company and its people to rot. I simply removed what was mine." The silence in the server room was deafening, broken only by the frantic clicks of keyboards from the IT team who were now completely lost, their usual diagnostic tools failing them. Mark looked around wildly, as if searching for someone, anyone, to contradict me. But there was no one. The truth, stark and undeniable, hung heavy in the air. Suddenly his phone rang. He fumbled with it, answered, and put it on speaker. It was a panicked voice from our head of sales. "Mark, clients are pulling out. Massive data integrity issues. We're getting hit with lawsuits already. The system is just down." Mark's eyes, full of a terrifying raw fear, locked onto mine. The mask of the charismatic leader had completely shattered. He was just a man, trapped, watching his carefully constructed world crumble around him. And I, the useless one, was the architect of its demise. Absolutely. Here is the concluding part of your story. Part 5. The Aftermath. The silence that followed the head of sales' frantic voice was a heavy shroud. Mark, who moments ago had been a titan of industry, now looked like a ghost. His face was ashen, his eyes hollow. He stumbled backward, bumping into a server rack, and slid slowly to the floor, head in his hands. The booming laughter, the dismissive wave, the arrogant pronouncements, all gone, replaced by the profound silence of utter defeat. I watched him, a strange mix of vindication and something else. Not regret, not exactly. Maybe a quiet sadness for what could have been, for the potential that had been squandered by one man's unchecked ego. Chloe, who had been observing the entire scene from the doorway, walked slowly into the room. She didn't say anything, but her gaze, first on Mark and then on me, was knowing. She understood. The next few hours were a blur of frantic phone calls from lawyers, desperate pleas from investors, and the slow, agonizing realization for everyone at Quantum Leap Solutions that the company was, quite simply, dead in the water. Without the core technology, without the proprietary algorithms I had built and now withdrawn, it was just an empty shell, a brand name with no product. By midday, the news had hit the tech blogs. Quantum Leap Solutions suffers catastrophic system failure, one headline screamed. Another more pointedly read, Tech unicorn implodes overnight amidst unexplained digital blackout. No one knew the full story, of course. They just saw the collapse, the sudden, inexplicable implosion of a company that had seemed so robust just days before. I walked out of that server room for the last time as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. The office was eerily quiet now, the frantic energy replaced by a stunned desolation. Mark was gone, no doubt whisked away by his lawyers to deal with the fallout. I imagined him in some opulent boardroom, stripped of his bravado, facing the very investors he had charmed with my work. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Chloe. "Thank you, Alex," it read simply. I smiled, a small, genuine smile that reached my eyes. It wasn't about revenge, not truly. It was about justice, about standing up for the value of my work, for the quiet brilliance that is so often overlooked. I had taken back what was mine, and in doing so, I had exposed a truth that needed to be seen. The silent investor had finally spoken. The days that followed were a whirlwind of media speculation and the quiet dismantling of what remained of Quantum Leap Solutions. While the public saw a corporate collapse behind the scenes, there was a different story unfolding. The company's remaining assets were being picked apart, but the core IP, the very code that I had built and subsequently secured, remained mine. It was a digital ghost, the essence of the company, now free from Mark's grasp. I didn't seek out the spotlight. The satisfaction was internal, the quiet hum of knowing I had reclaimed what was rightfully mine. But word travels fast in the tech world. Soon my inbox, once filled with internal company updates and technical queries, began to buzz with new kinds of messages. Recruiters, venture capitalists, even former competitors. They had all seen the headlines, heard the whispers, and were starting to piece together the untold narrative. One email, in particular, caught my attention. It was from Chloe. "Heard you're free," it read. "Got an idea. Coffee." We met at a small, independent coffee shop on the outskirts of the city, far from the gleaming towers of corporate America. Chloe looked less stressed, a new light in her eyes. She had landed on her feet, quickly snatched up by a reputable startup that valued engineering integrity over flashy promises. "So," she began, taking a sip of her latte, "what are you going to do with it all? The code, I mean." I shrugged, stirring my coffee. "Not sure yet. It's powerful. Could be the basis for something entirely new." Chloe leaned forward, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "What if it was? What if we built something right this time? Something where the product comes first, where the people building it are valued, not dismissed. No more useless remarks, no more chasing empty trends." Her words resonated deeply. The idea of rebuilding, of creating something truly ethical and innovative from the ashes of Mark's ambition, was compelling. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about redemption, about proving that integrity and genuine innovation could win. The sun streamed through the coffee shop window, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. For the first time in a long time, the future felt bright, filled with possibility rather than resentment. The hum I felt now wasn't the drone of a server room or the bitter echo of an insult. It was the quiet thrum of a new beginning, a clean slate. And this time I wouldn't be silent.